Your Honor, she's a hero in uniform, but a failure at home. The words echoed across the courtroom before I could take my next breath. My husband, Mark Bennett, stood beside his attorney with the smug smile I'd watched grow over the last 2 years. My wife spent 22 years putting strangers before her own family, he continued. The army got the best of her. Our daughter got whatever was left. I rested both hands on the oak table and looked toward the bench. Judge Daniel Morgan sat quietly, flipping through the custody file. Outside, rain tapped the courthouse windows in Columbus, Georgia. It was just after 9 on a Tuesday morning in late October, and my divorce hearing had become the hardest mission of my life. I wasn't afraid of losing money or the house. I was terrified of losing my 13-year-old daughter. My name is Rebecca Bennett. I'm 44, and until 6 months ago, I was a captain in the United States Army. I'd delivered medical aid after hurricanes, treated wounded soldiers in Afghanistan, missed countless holidays because duty came first. To Mark, every deployment had become evidence I didn't deserve to be called a wife. Judge Morgan looked over his glasses. Captain Bennett, would you like to respond? I stood. I won't argue about my military record, I said. Mark smirked, thinking I'd surrendered. Then I looked at the judge and something about his face felt achingly familiar. Dust, smoke, a burning convoy. Judge Morgan, I said, do you remember what happened on Route Red? The color drained from his face, his pen slipped from his hand, he stood slowly. Captain Bennett, he whispered. I thought you were dead. Mark sucked in a sharp breath. Wait. Judge Morgan called a recess before he could finish. In the hallway, my lawyer Denise Carter stared at me. You know the judge? I knew him a long time ago, I said. I didn't realize it until he looked at me. She frowned. That could complicate things. Mark and I met in 2005 at a barbecue outside Fort Benning. I was 23, newly commissioned, still learning to sleep through artillery training in the distance. He was helping his cousin fix a rusty grill, wearing a Georgia Bulldogs t-shirt and an easy smile. You military? He asked, nodding at my haircut. We married 2 years later in a small Baptist church. For the first few years, Mark handled military life better than most spouses I knew. Packing boxes when orders came through, fixing the washing machine, crying harder than I did beside my hospital bed when our daughter Emily was born. Then the deployments came closer together, and small comments crept in. The Army gets first choice on everything. His mother Carol made it worse. A child needs her mother, not a photograph in uniform. I convinced myself Mark still understood the life we'd chosen. I didn't see that resentment had settled into the silences between us, or that he'd already built another life inside ours. In spring 2021, I deployed to Afghanistan for what was supposed to be 4 months. Every Sunday I called home. Mark always sounded tired. Everything's fine, just busy. I believed him. A few weeks in, Emily started rushing through our calls. Once she quietly asked, Mom, when are you coming home? I didn't know that a woman named Lisa Reynolds, a coworker from Mark's insurance office, had already become comfortable in my house. Dinners, then movie nights, then weekends, then staying past bedtime. When I came home 5 months later, everything looked normal. Then small things bothered me. Unfamiliar shampoo, a mug that wasn't mine, a blanket smelling of perfume. One Saturday, I found a hotel receipt in a desk drawer. 2 nights in Savannah. The same weekend Mark claimed to be at a conference. Underneath it, jewelry store envelopes and a restaurant reservation for 2. That evening I laid the receipts on the table. Mark sat down. I guess you know, no apology. About 8 months, he said. I got tired of being married to the Army. 2 months later, he filed for divorce, seeking primary custody, calling my military career proof I was an unstable parent. The moment I looked into Judge Morgan's eyes in that courtroom, I was back in Afghanistan, August 2009, on a dirt road the locals called Route Red. Our convoy hit an IED near the second vehicle. Gunfire came from both sides, dust swallowing everything. Training took over. You stop thinking, you move. I ran toward a burning Humvee, pulled 2 trapped soldiers free, then found Colonel Daniel Morgan, pinned under twisted metal, blood on his forehead. Get my men first, he said, even then thinking of everyone but himself. I cut him free anyway, and 2 infantrymen carried him to safety while I kept moving between the wounded, packing wounds and tightening tourniquets until the helicopters finally arrived nearly 40 minutes later. As the last one lifted off, another explosion knocked me off my feet. I woke 2 weeks later in a hospital in Germany, with burns, a concussion, and broken ribs. Word had spread that I hadn't survived the blast. By the time military records were corrected, Morgan had already been transferred home. We never saw each other again, until that courtroom, 17 years later. The hearing resumed as though Route Red had never been mentioned. Emily's school counselor testified about her anxiety and falling grades during my deployments. True, and it still felt like a rope tightening around my chest. Mark testified about missed birthdays and Christmas mornings watched through a grainy video call. All true, but not the whole truth. When it was my turn, Denise asked if I regretted my service. I looked toward Emily. I regret every birthday I missed, I said, my voice shaking. I regret every bedtime story I read over a screen. But I don't regret serving my country. Mark's attorney pressed closer. Children don't remember medals, he said. They remember who tucked them into bed. I know, I finally answered. That's something I've had to live with every single day. At the next hearing, the guardian ad litem, Susan Keller, revealed that Emily had asked for a private meeting. Emily said she'd been told not to mention Lisa living in the house, and that Carol had told her, "Your mother loves the army more than she loves you." Then Keller placed Emily's old phone on the evidence table. Videos Emily had secretly saved. One showed Lisa at our kitchen table, while Carol said, "We'll have this place fixed up before Rebecca gets home." Another showed Mark telling Emily not to tell me, adding, "Your mother already chose the army over us." A third showed stockings on our mantle. Mark, Lisa, and Emily, mine gone. Carol beaming, "This looks more like a real family." The last recording ended with Emily asking, "Will Mom think I helped you?" Mark had no answer. Denise then introduced financial records, nearly $23,000 in hotel stays and gifts for Lisa, and withdrawals from Emily's college fund to pay for it. When Carol snapped that none of this would have happened if she'd stayed home instead of playing soldier, Judge Morgan cut her off flatly. Military service was not something to mock in his courtroom. Judge Morgan's ruling was measured. The court wasn't deciding whether I'd been a perfect mother. No parent is, but whether one parent had manipulated a child and misrepresented the other's character. Military service often demands painful sacrifices, he said. That reality deserves understanding, not exploitation. To me, those facts can exist at the same time. To Mark, what cannot coexist with good parenting is teaching a child to hide the truth. Mark, standing, finally admitted, "I was lonely. I felt abandoned. I convinced myself I deserved to be happy. I never meant to hurt Emily." It was the first honest thing he'd said. Keller added that Emily still loved both parents, but had told her, "Mom always came home when she said she would." The court awarded joint legal custody, with primary physical custody to me, ordered repayment of Emily's college fund, and mandated family counseling. Emily crossed the courtroom and hugged me. "I'm sorry, Mom." "You have nothing to be sorry for." Life afterward wasn't perfect, but it rebuilt. Emily moved into my townhouse, decorated every room herself, and laughed freely again. Mark picked her up every Wednesday, always on time, and never spoke badly of me. Lisa eventually left for Tennessee. Carol called to apologize, and I accepted it. That spring, I retired after 22 years of service. At the ceremony, Judge Morgan appeared in a suit, not robes, there as a veteran, not a judge. "I spent years believing I never had the chance to thank the woman who saved my life," he said, and saluted me. I returned it, and around us, other veterans did the same. On the drive home, Emily said, "I'm glad you came home." I squeezed her hand. "So am I." These days life is wonderfully ordinary: groceries, fishing at Lake Oliver, small disagreements, a daughter thinking about college. Looking back, the greatest victory was never revenge, it was refusing to let bitterness become the rest of my story.